Have you ever tried to imagine our world, not as we know it today, but buried under colossal sheets of ice? Picture vast, frozen landscapes stretching for thousands of miles, where giant woolly mammoths roamed and glaciers carved out valleys as they crept across the continents. It sounds like something out of a fantasy movie, but this was our planet's reality. What was life truly like when much of the world was locked in ice? That's the question we're going to dive into. We'll explore the incredible climate cycles that plunged Earth into deep freezes, meet the giant beasts or megafauna that adapted to this harsh world, and trace the footsteps of our own ancestors as they navigated this icy realm. We'll also uncover how these ancient events continue to shape the world we live in today. So buckle up, because we're about to travel back in time to one of the most extreme chapters in Earth's history, the Ice Age. First things first, what exactly is an ice age? When we hear the term, we usually picture a planet completely frozen over. But scientifically, an ice age is defined as any period in Earth's history when there are permanent ice sheets at both the North and South poles. Now, here's a mind-blowing fact. Based on that definition, we are technically still in an ice age right now. This larger ice age, called the Quaternary Glaciation, started about 2.6 million years ago. Within this long ice age, the climate isn't stable. It fluctuates between two distinct phases, glacial periods and interglacial periods. Glacial periods are the supercold phases, where ice sheets expand dramatically from the poles and cover large parts of North America, Europe, and Asia. This is the classic ice age image we all have. Then you have the interglacial periods, which are the warmer spells in between, like the one we're living in now, where the glaciers retreat back towards the poles. So, what causes the Earth to swing back and forth between these deep freezes and warmer thaws? The primary driver is a fascinating celestial rhythm known as Milankovitch cycles. These cycles describe long-term, collective changes in Earth's movements in space. There are three main ones: the shape of Earth's orbit around the Sun, which changes from nearly circular to more elliptical over about 100,000 years; the tilt of Earth's axis, which wobbles back and forth every 41,000 years; and the wobble of the Earth itself, like a spinning top, which has a cycle of about 26,000 years. These subtle shifts in our planet, as position relative to the Sun, do drastically change the total amount of solar energy Earth receives, but they do change where that energy is distributed. When these cycles align in a certain way, they reduce the amount of summer sunlight hitting the northern hemisphere. This means that winter snow doesn't completely melt away in the summer. Year after year, the snow builds up, compressing into dense ice and forming massive glaciers. Once these glaciers get big enough, they create their own feedback loop. Their bright, white surfaces reflect more sunlight back into space, which cools the planet even further, allowing the ice to expand even more. This delicate cosmic dance is the engine that drives our planet into and out of glacial periods. It's a slow, powerful rhythm that has shaped our world for millions of years. So, when did this grand icy saga begin? Our current ice age, the Quaternary period, kicked off around 2.6 million years ago. But the stage was set long before that by massive geological forces. The world's continents weren't always where they are today. Over millions of years, the slow, relentless movement of tectonic plates reshaped the globe, and these changes had profound effects on the climate. One of the most critical events was the formation of the Isthmus of Panama. Before about 3 million years ago, North and South America were separate continents, allowing water to flow freely between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But as tectonic plates pushed together, the land bridge we now know as Central America rose from the sea, connecting the two continents and, crucially, cutting off this ancient ocean current. This was a game-changer for global ocean circulation. It redirected warm, salty water from the tropics northward into the North Atlantic, creating the Gulf Stream we know today. Now, you might think that pumping warm water towards the North Pole would warm things up, right? But it had the opposite effect. This warm water carried a huge amount of moisture with it. When this moist air traveled over North America and Eurasia, it resulted in much heavier snowfall. More snow meant more ice, and this was one of the key triggers that helped push the Northern Hemisphere into a state of glaciation. The world was primed for an ice age. Other factors likely played a role too. Changes in volcanic activity could have pumped ash and aerosols into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and causing temporary cooling. The slow uplift of mountain ranges like the Himalayas and the Rockies also altered atmospheric circulation patterns, further influencing weather systems on a global scale. It wasn't one single event, but a perfect storm of geological and astronomical factors that nudged the Earth's climate system over the edge. Once these conditions were in place, the early cycles of ice expansion and retreat began. Driven by the Milankovitch cycles we talked about, the planet started oscillating between cold glacial periods and warmer interglacials. In the early part of the Quaternary, these cycles were relatively mild and occurred roughly every 41,000 years, matching the rhythm of Earth's axial tilt. Massive ice sheets began to periodically grow over Canada, Scandinavia, and Siberia, reaching thicknesses of over a mile in some places. They would advance for tens of thousands of years, scouring the landscape, carving out lakes, and pushing debris in front of them like giant bulldozers. Then, as the orbital cycles shifted, the glaciers would begin a slow retreat, melting back and revealing a transformed world, only for the cycle to begin all over again. This was the new icy rhythm of planet Earth, a rhythm that would set the stage for the evolution of incredible creatures, and eventually, our own species. Imagine vast, sweeping landscapes. The dominant ecosystem wasn't dense forest, but something called the tundra and the mammoth steppe. Picture endless, windswept plains, cold and dry, covered not with trees, but with tough grasses, herbs, and low-lying shrubs. These environments stretched across continents, from Europe all the way to North America. While forests did exist, they were greatly reduced, pushed into sheltered valleys or warmer southern regions, clinging on as pockets of green in a world of brown and white. And who roamed these vast steppes? The giants, of course. This was the age of megafauna. Towering over the grasslands were the woolly mammoths, magnificent creatures with long, curved tusks that used to sweep away snow to find food. They weren't alone. You might have seen the formidable saber-toothed cat, Smilodon *, with its iconic dagger-like canine teeth, a truly apex predator. And let's not forget the giant ground sloths, some as large as modern elephants, slowly making their way across the landscape, browsing on whatever vegetation they could find. We also had woolly rhinos, massive cave bears, and the enormous Irish elk with its incredible antler span. So how did these animals not just freeze to death? The answer lies in brilliant adaptations. The most obvious one was a thick coat of fur. Mammoths, for example, had a dense undercoat for insulation and long guard hairs to shed snow and water. Beneath that fur, many had a thick layer of body fat, just like whales today, which acted as a powerful energy reserve and an extra layer of insulation against the biting cold. Their large body size was also a key advantage. A bigger body has a lower surface area to volume ratio, which means it loses heat more slowly. It has a simple rule of physics that made survival possible in a world where warmth was a precious commodity. But it wasn't just about the giants. The Ice Age world was also home to a diverse array of smaller animals, many of whom are still with us today. Think of Arctic foxes, hares, lemmings, and wolves. Their survival depended on different strategies. Many, like the Arctic fox and ptarmigan, developed white coats in winter for camouflage against the snow, helping them to both hunt and hide. Some, like lemmings and voles, lived and foraged in tunnels under the snowpack, a surprisingly insulated world safe from from the harsh winds above. Hibernation was another critical strategy for animals like bears and marmots, allowing them to sleep through the coldest months when food was scarcest. These smaller creatures were the vital, unsung heroes of the Ice Age ecosystem. They formed the base of the food web for larger predators and played crucial roles as grazers and seed dispersers. Their resilience and clever survival tricks are a testament to the incredible adaptability of life. The story of the Ice Age isn't just about the mighty mammoths. It's a complex web of interactions where every creature, big or small, had a part to play in this epic drama of survival. From the giants of the steppe to the small survivors burrowing under the snow, life during the Ice Age was a constant struggle against the cold. But it was also a time of incredible evolutionary innovation, creating a world that was both alien and strangely familiar. Our story begins in Africa, where our species emerged. But we weren't content to stay put. Driven by curiosity, climate shifts, and the need for new resources, our ancestors began an epic migration out of Africa and across the globe. This was no easy stroll. It was a journey into a world dominated by ice and extreme cold. And they weren't alone. As Homo sapiens moved into Europe and Asia, they encountered other human species who had been there for hundreds of thousands of years, like the robust Neanderthals and the mysterious Denisovans. For a long time, we thought of these encounters as purely competitive. But modern genetics tells a far more interesting story. We didn't just meet them. We interbred. Many of us today carry a small percentage of Neanderthal or Denisovan DNA in our genomes, a living legacy of these ancient encounters. It's a powerful reminder that our human family tree has many interconnected branches. So, how did our ancestors survive and even thrive in these harsh Ice Age conditions? The key was ingenuity. One of the most important tools in their survival kit was fire. Fire wasn't just for warmth in the biting cold. It was a way to cook food, making it safer and more nutritious. It was a weapon to ward off predators like cave lions and bears, and it was a social hub, a place to gather, share stories, and strengthen community bonds. Beyond fire, early humans were master toolmakers. They took stone, bone, and ivory and crafted an incredible array of implements. They made sophisticated spear points for hunting mammoths and bison, sharp flint knives for butchering meat and scraping hides, and delicate bone needles for sewing. This wasn't just about survival. It was about efficiency and innovation. Each tool was a solution to a problem, a testament to their incredible cognitive abilities. And what about shelter? While we often call them cavemen, natural caves and rock overhangs were indeed prime real estate, offering protection from the relentless wind and snow. But our ancestors were also skilled builders. Where caves weren't available, they constructed their own shelters. Some built huts using the massive bones and tusks of mammoths as a frame, covering them with animal hides. Imagine a cozy home built from the remains of a giant you hunted. It's a powerful image of their resourcefulness. To survive the cold, clothing was essential. Using those bone needles we mentioned, they painstakingly stitched together tailored clothing from animal hides and furs. These weren't just simple wraps. They were fitted garments, trousers, parkas, boots, and mittens that trapped body heat and allowed them to function in sub-zero temperatures. They were, in effect, the world's first fashion designers, and their creations were a matter of life and death. But survival wasn't their only focus. These Ice Age people had rich inner lives, a sense of wonder, and a need for expression. And they left behind breathtaking evidence of this in the deep, dark corners of caves across Europe. I'm talking about cave art. In places like Lascaux, in France, and Altamira in Spain, our ancestors created stunning galleries of art. Using charcoal and mineral pigments like ochre, they painted vivid images of the world around them. Herds of bison, charging horses, majestic deer, and of course, the mighty mammoth. These weren't just doodles. The animals are often depicted with incredible realism and a sense of motion. Scholars debate their exact purpose. Were they hunting magic, meant to ensure a successful hunt? Were they records of past events? Or were they part of spiritual or shamanic rituals performed in the flickering torchlight, deep within the womb of the earth? We may never know for sure, but they give us a profound, direct connection to the minds of our ancestors, a glimpse into their souls. They show us that the need to create, to tell stories, and to make sense of the world is a fundamental part of being human. The incredible adaptability of Homo sapiens is the running theme of this entire period. They weren't just surviving, they were actively expanding. As the Ice Age reached its peak around 20,000 years ago, so much of the world as water was locked up in massive ice sheets that sea levels were dramatically lower than they are today. This created new opportunities. One of the most significant was the emergence of a vast land bridge connecting Asia and North America, an area we now call Beringia. It wasn't a narrow, icy path, but a huge, cold grassland steppe, teeming with game. Groups of hunters, likely following herds of mammoths and caribou, ventured across this land bridge. They had no idea they were stepping onto a new continent, a new world. This migration into the Americas was the final great act of human expansion during the Ice Age. Over thousands of years, these first peoples, the Paleo-Indians, spread south, adapting to a staggering variety of new environments, from the ice-free corridors of the north to the plains, forests, and deserts of North and South America. They carried with them the same toolkit of ingenuity and resilience that had allowed their ancestors to conquer the old world. From mastering fire and crafting intricate tools to creating timeless art and settling 2 new continents, the story of humans in the Ice Age is a powerful epic of survival, innovation, and unstoppable curiosity. They faced a world far harsher than we can imagine, and didn't just endure, they flourished. Their legacy is written in our DNA, in the tools they left behind, and in the timeless art that still speaks to us from the walls of ancient caves. Imagine winding the clock back 20,000 years. This is a time when the Earth's ice sheets reach their absolute greatest extent. It's a world buried under ice. In North America, the colossal Laurentide ice sheet held sway. This was a monster of a glacier, covering almost all of modern-day Canada and stretching south into what is now the United States, reaching as far as New York City and Chicago. Its weight was so immense that it literally pressed down on the Earth's crust, depressing the land beneath it by hundreds of meters. Think of it like a giant pressing its thumb into a soft ball. The scale is just mind-boggling. And it wasn't just North America. In Europe, the Fennoscandian ice sheet smothered Scandinavia and parts of Britain, while smaller ice caps and glaciers clung to mountain ranges like the Alps and the Pyrenees. All this ice, locking up vast quantities of the world's water, had a dramatic effect on the planet. Global sea levels plummeted by as much as 120 meters, or nearly 400 feet. That's like draining a 40-story building's worth of water from the oceans. This massive drop in sea level completely redrew the world map. Coastlines expanded, and land that is now underwater was exposed, creating new bridges between continents. For instance, Britain wasn't an island. It was a peninsula of northwestern Europe, connected by a vast, low-lying plain called Doggerland. You could have walked from modern-day England to the Netherlands. Further east, a wide land bridge known as Beringia connected Siberia to Alaska. This wasn't a narrow, icy path. It was a massive, habitable subcontinent, 1,000 kilometers wide, teeming with life. So, how did life cope in this extreme world? For animals, it was all about adaptation. Woolly mammoths, with their thick coats, and large fat reserves, were perfectly suited for the cold, arid steppe tundra that dominated the landscape. Saber-toothed cats, giant ground sloths, and cave lions all carved out niches in this challenging environment. And what about our ancestors? Humans didn't just survive. They thrived. They were skilled hunters and gatherers, following the great herds of animals across these new, expanded landscapes. They developed sophisticated tools, clothing made from animal hides, and created breathtaking cave art, like the famous paintings in Lascaux and Chauvet in France. These artworks give us a stunning glimpse into their world, showing the animals they hunted and the deep spiritual connection they had with nature. They lived in small, mobile groups, their lives intricately tied to the rhythms of the ice and the migrations of the herds. The last glacial maximum wasn't just a challenge. It was an environment that our ancestors mastered. But as we know, nothing lasts forever. After thousands of years in a deep freeze, the Earth's climate was about to undergo a profound and rapid transformation, signaling the end of the Ice Age. Starting around 19,000 years ago, subtle shifts in Earth's orbit, known as Milankovitch cycles, began to change the amount of solar radiation reaching the northern hemisphere. The planet started to warm up, slowly at first, and then with increasing speed. The great ice sheets, which had dominated the world for so long, began to melt. This wasn't a gentle thaw. It was a dramatic and sometimes violent process. As the ice retreated, it unleashed immense quantities of meltwater. This led to a steady rise in sea levels, gradually flooding the coastal plains and land bridges that had connected continents. Doggerland slowly sank beneath the waves, turning Britain into an island. The Bering Land Bridge disappeared under the rising waters of what are now the Bering and Chukchi Seas. The world map as we know it today began to take shape. The melting also triggered catastrophic events known as megafloods. Imagine lakes the size of inland seas, dammed by walls of ice. As the climate warmed, these ice dams would sometimes fail catastrophically. The most famous example is Glacial Lake Missoula in North America. When its ice dam broke, it unleashed a torrent of water with more force than all the rivers of the world combined, scouring the landscape of eastern Washington to create the dramatic terrain we call the channeled scablands. These were floods of truly biblical proportions, reshaping entire regions in a matter of days. The transition out of the Ice Age wasn't a smooth, linear process. Just as the world seemed to be settling into a warmer pattern, the climate abruptly snapped back into the cold. This sudden, chilly interruption, known as the Younger Dryas, began around 12,900 years ago. Temperatures in the northern hemisphere plummeted, returning to near-glacial conditions for over 1,000 years. The exact cause is still debated by scientists, but a leading theory suggests that a massive pulse of fresh meltwater from North America shut down the Atlantic Ocean's circulation system, which acts like a giant heat pump for Europe. For the people and animals that had just adapted to a warmer world, this was a severe shock. Forests retreated, and the ice began to advance once more. But this cold snap was the Ice Age's last gasp. Just as suddenly as it began, the Younger Dryas ended around 11,700 years ago. The climate warmed rapidly, and this time, it stuck. This marks the official end of the Pleistocene epoch and the beginning of our current geological epoch, the Holocene. The great ice sheets made their final retreat. The megafauna that had defined the Ice Age largely went extinct, and the world settled into the relatively stable, warm interglacial period we've enjoyed ever since. This new stability allowed humans to develop agriculture, build cities, and create the complex civilizations that have defined the last 10,000 years of human history. The Ice Age was over, but its legacy is written into our landscapes, our DNA, and the very foundations of our world. So, what happened to all the incredible giants of the Ice Age? Where did the mammoths, the saber-toothed cats, and the colossal ground sloths go? This is one of the greatest mysteries in paleontology, marking the end of an era. As the glaciers retreated, a massive extinction event swept across the globe, wiping out dozens of species of megafauna. The question is, what or who was responsible? This brings us to one of the biggest scientific debates of our time. Was it climate change or human overhunting? Let's break it down. The end of the Pleistocene brought rapid warming. Glaciers melted, sea levels rose, and the vast, cold grasslands that these giants relied on transformed into forests and different types of prairies. For animals adapted to a specific cold, dry environment, this was a catastrophic change. Their food sources vanished and their habitats shrank. It seems like a classic case of climate-driven extinction, but there's a twist. This warming wasn't the first of its kind. The Ice Age was a cycle of glacial and interglacial periods, with many warming spells before. Yet, this particular extinction event was far more severe. And what was different this time? Modern humans were spreading across the globe, armed with sophisticated tools and hunting strategies. The evidence is compelling. In North America, the arrival of the first humans, known as the Clovis people, coincides almost perfectly with the rapid disappearance of mammoths, mastodons, and other large animals. Archaeologists have found Clovis spear points embedded in mammoth skeletons, direct proof of hunting. It's a pattern we see repeated elsewhere. In Australia, megafauna like the giant wombat-like diprotodon and the marsupial lion vanished shortly after humans arrived, long before the peak of the last glacial warming. A similar story unfolded in Eurasia, where woolly rhinos and cave bears disappeared as human populations grew. So, who's the culprit? The truth is likely a combination of both. Imagine you're a giant sloth. The climate is already making your life difficult. Your favorite food is becoming scarce, and your habitat is changing. Then a new, highly intelligent predator shows up, one that hunts in coordinated groups and uses deadly projectiles. It's a perfect storm. The pressure from a changing environment likely weakened megafauna populations, making them more vulnerable to the final blow delivered by human hunters. This one-two punch of climate change and overhunting was probably too much for many species to handle. This mass extinction wasn't just a sad end for these magnificent creatures. It fundamentally reshaped ecosystems. By removing these massive herbivores, humans became the planet's new keystone species, the primary engineers of landscapes. The world we live in today, from the composition of our forests to the distribution of animal life, was profoundly shaped by these events at the dawn of human civilization. But the Ice Age didn't just vanish without a trace. Its legacy is all around us, carved into the very surface of our planet. Just look at a map. The Great Lakes of North America? They are enormous basins gouged out by the sheer weight and grinding power of the continental ice sheets, filled in as the ice melted. The stunning fjords of Norway and New Zealand? They are deep valleys carved by glaciers that were later flooded by the rising sea. The U-shaped valleys in the Alps and the Rocky Mountains are classic signatures of glacial erosion, distinct from the V-shaped valleys carved by rivers. The Ice Age was the ultimate landscape artist, and we are living in its gallery. And it's not just geology. The living descendants of the Ice Age are still with us. Animals like reindeer, musk oxen, and of course, the iconic polar bear are all survivors, perfectly adapted to the cold environments that are remnants of that frozen world. They are living links to a time when ice dominated the planet. These creatures carry the genetic heritage of their Ice Age ancestors, a testament to their incredible resilience. The Ice Age also left us a frozen time capsule, permafrost. In places like Siberia and Alaska, the permanently frozen ground has preserved the remains of Ice Age animals in stunning detail. We found woolly mammoths with their skin, hair, and even last meals still intact. These frozen remains provide an incredible window into the past, offering up DNA that was once thought lost forever. This has sparked one of the most exciting and controversial fields in modern science, die-extinction. Scientists are actively working on projects to bring back species like the woolly mammoth, using genetic material from frozen specimens and modern relatives like the Asian elephant. Could we one day see a mammoth walk the earth again? The ethical and ecological questions are huge, but the possibility is tantalizing. It forces us to consider our role in the planet's future as much as its past. Finally, the legacy of the Ice Age might even be woven into our oldest stories. Some researchers believe that ancient myths and oral traditions from cultures around the world contain echoes of these dramatic times. Stories of great floods could be cultural memories of catastrophic sea level rise as glaciers melted. Tales of monstrous beasts might be distorted recollections of the megafauna our ancestors lived alongside and hunted. These stories could be the oldest surviving human memories, passed down through countless generations, a faint but persistent whisper from our deep past. From the lakes we swim in to the animals we cherish, and even the stories we tell, the Ice Age is not just a distant chapter in a history book. It's a living legacy that continues to shape our world and our imagination. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey, back from the biting cold and colossal beasts of the Ice Age. What a ride it's been, right? We've walked with mammoths, stared into the eyes of saber-toothed cats, and traced the footsteps of our own resilient ancestors. Looking back, the Ice Age is more than just a period of intense cold. It's an epic saga of survival against all odds. It's a story of constant change, where life didn't just endure. It adapted, innovated, and transformed. Every glacier that carved a valley, every species that migrated across a land bridge, and every human who huddled around a fire was part of this incredible narrative of transformation. Think about it, the world we live in today was forged in that icy crucible. The Great Lakes, the fjords of Norway, the very soil beneath our feet. So much of our geography is a direct legacy of those massive ice sheets. They were the planet's sculptors, carving out the landscapes we now call home. But it's not just the physical world. The Ice Age fundamentally shaped us. The challenges our ancestors faced pushed human ingenuity to its limits. It spurred the development of complex tools, sophisticated hunting strategies, social cooperation, and even art. The pressure to survive in such a harsh environment may have been the very spark that ignited the flame of modern human civilization. We are, in many ways, the children of the ice. As we close this chapter, it's worth remembering that the story of our planet is far from over. The Earth is a dynamic, living system, constantly in flux. The forces that triggered the Ice Ages and brought them to an end are still at play. A constant, subtle dance of climate, geology, and life. The world is not a static museum of its past. It is an ever-evolving masterpiece. The ground beneath us is always shifting, the climate is always changing, and the great story of Earth continues to be written, with us as its current authors. What will the next chapter hold? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through time. It's been an absolute pleasure exploring this frozen world with you. If you've enjoyed this series, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the story of our world. Until next time, stay curious.